Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
This entire military is one cohesive, dedicated force. And the threats to our nations, they don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We've seen war. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Join Terry with Tracer Rounds every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern to hear interviews with veteran artists, veteran business owners, and businesses that support veterans. Catch us on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and MB Radio. If you miss a show, you can listen again on Wreaths Across America Radio every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Tune in to see if you are on target. MBR, giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Welcome to the Tracer Rounds podcast, and I'm your host, Terry. And the veteran we have tonight is Air National Guard veteran Larry Riepma, who is also my uncle, and he's my dad's twin brother. So looking at my uncle, I kind of see my dad at the same time. So welcome, Larry. I appreciate you coming on the podcast tonight.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you because your career I don't know much about, because when I was like in my teens and 14 years old or so, I moved away. And so I never really knew much about your service. So I'm so happy tonight to hear a little bit more about what you did in the military and how long you've been in the military, that kind of thing. So I think if you don't mind, can we start with how old you were when you joined the service and what branch did you join?
I was 18 and I joined the Air Force.
What was the climate like when you joined? Did you join because you wanted to see something or you wanted to get a skill, or what was your reasoning for joining the military at that time?
Didn't want to go in the Army.
Air Force is definitely better. I'll give you that. So you enlisted at 18, and so you enlisted active duty Air Force, or what did you do?
Active duty.
Active duty. And how many years active duty did you do in the Air Force?
4.
4. And what did you enlist to do? What was your MOS or your AF? I can't remember what the Air Force calls it. Air Force. Don't give me a line.
I'm trying to think of that myself. My specialty, whatever. But I was a jet engine mechanic.
Jet engine. And what type of planes did you work on?
Well, the first one I worked on was the F-105, the Thunder Chief, and I was stationed in Wichita, Kansas, working on those, and then they shipped us over to Thailand, and then I got shipped over to Japan for about a year, and then back to Thailand again.
So we have some comments from some family. So Jerry says, we're here. And Robert says, Uncle Larry, oops, I missed it. Hold on, it disappeared on me. There it goes. Uncle Larry. And then some of our hosts are on here too. We have MJ, who is a host for the World of Conscious Positive Thinking. And so she said, so MJ said, yay, Air Force. Oops, I missed it. Sorry. There we go. So you went to Japan. What was that like? And had you ever been outside the U.S. before you got sent over there?
Never. I'm barely out of the state of Idaho, in fact. Japan was a very nice country. I enjoyed Japan a lot. The people are honest and pretty progressive and friendly, and I always felt safe there wherever I went. And I think I saw one panhandler the entire time I was in the country.
Oh, wow. You see a lot here, that's for sure.
Well, Thailand, everybody's a panhandler. And the Philippines is even worse yet.
Oh, wow. So what was your favorite assignment while you were active duty?
Probably Japan.
Japan.
Kansas was nice too. Other than the wind blew all the time, but other than that, it was a nice state.
Yeah, it's pretty flat. I don't know if you've heard the joke, but they're like, if you go down the highway, you pass the same dog in the same mailbox at least 6 times. Because it's always so flat, you're not seeing anything but just flat countryside for miles and miles. That's neat. So what did you do after your 4 years in the active duty Air Force? What did you do next?
Well, I worked for Boeing for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And then got laid off. And then I moved back to Idaho and went to college for a while and joined the Air Guard for added income.
Yeah. What were you studying in college?
Well, originally I thought it'd be nice to be with the Fish and Game Department or something, but I found out you had to pretty much needed a degree in biology, and to get the degree in biology, you needed a lot of calculus, geometry, and algebra, and it just wasn't my thing. Right. So then I was going to be a history teacher, and then they offered me a full-time position with the Idaho Air Guard. Yeah. So I talked to my college professor about it and told him how much I'd be making, and he said, well, I don't make much more than that myself, and I've got a PhD. So anyway, I decided, well, I'll do that then. So
what did you do? You were a tech?
Yes.
For the Air Force. And so what did you do?
Same thing. Fixed
same thing.
Motors. Yeah.
So did you travel a lot too on the tech side, or were you mostly traveling on the National Guard, Air National Guard side?
We would always, when we traveled, we were always military. They would just either spend our 2 weeks, required 2 weeks, or they just put us on military orders for a period of time. They could put us on military orders for up to 6 months without making us active duty.
Right. So what all did you do on your assignments when you got sent different places with the Air National Guard? What all did you do? I know you told me that you went overseas and you were kind of in Iraq. Weren't you in Iraq when you were just trying to make sure that nothing was going on? You were just kind of doing flyovers?
Well, I was in that part of the country twice. I was in Saudi Arabia, and that was Southern Watch, they called it, and our planes would just fly around uh, Iraq all day long in case the Hussein decided he wanted to bomb some Kurds that day, and then we'd take out his planes. But of course, he never did. And then later on, I went to Turkey, and that was Northern Watch, and we did the same thing. And I did get in Turkey. I got to go up on a on a tanker because our planes would fly up there 8 hours or so at a time, so that they'd have to get refueled every couple of hours or so. And that was kind of interesting. I got to see Iraq from up high, and I got to see how they refuel planes midair and those kind of things. It was interesting.
It looks pretty crazy to see that midair fueling. Is like, how do they do that precision movements, each one of them, so that they link up perfectly and they stay steady so that the fuel can transfer and then, they separate. It's just amazing how that coordination or that choreography of those two planes comes together.
Well, they have a guy in back of the plane who runs the boom. He can go left, right, up, down with it, and hook it into the plane's the fighter's got a little nozzle thing that sticks up and forward, and they just guide it in there and lock it on there and fill them up.
Right. It still has to be a lot of precision, like not deviating from, moving anything so that transfer can happen. It just seems like that's like a really serious connection, and it would be worrisome to me. I'd be like, oh man, I'm going to move. I know I'm going to move.
I'm sure they had a lot of training in order to accomplish that.
So what would you say was maybe your scariest moment in a plane? What would you say, like, what kind of thing would have happened that you're like, oh man, I don't know what's going to happen from this point forward?
I can't even remember one.
Can't remember. Well, that's good. That means there was nothing really scary.
Yeah, it was any air travel we did was usually extremely uncomfortable and noisy.
Yeah, I bet.
They don't put you in first class. We usually had web seats that are on the edges of the plane, and we'd be surrounded by cargo, and there was so noisy in there you couldn't really carry on a conversation, and so I didn't enjoy traveling much.
Yeah, well, I could see that. So when you were in air, what did you have a job on the plane too, or just traveling mostly with the crew to make sure the plane didn't have any problems?
Well, no, the planes that I flew on were strictly transportation.
Transportation.
Yeah, all the planes that I worked on were fighter types.
Yeah.
Single or double occupancy on them, and that was about it. Right. I was supposed to fly down to Texas on an F4, and then they got canceled at the last minute, and they sent me commercial. I was very disappointed.
Yeah, I would be too. I don't blame you. I don't know if you saw it, but Pam and my dad are watching, so they just wanted to say hello too.
Oh, hello.
So how many years did you end up serving in the Air Force National Guard?
Well, I had 23 years as a full-timer, and then add about 3 more years as a part-timer. So, and then of course they also counted my 4 years of active duty. So,
right. What would you say your biggest takeaway from the service was?
My retirement.
Well, that's something, isn't it? Yeah, I would say that's a good takeaway. Do you miss it?
No.
No?
No.
After all those years, you don't miss it?
No, I was happy to go.
Yeah.
I miss some of the camaraderie there.
Yeah.
We usually were pretty much underworked, so we had a lot of time to make one another's life as miserable as possible. That was always fun.
So you were a jokester, were you?
Kinda.
Yeah. Sounds just like my dad. He was a jokester at his work too. They never knew what he was going to do. So it sounds like two peas in a pod.
Well, I was the butt of many of them. So
Oh no.
yeah, it went both ways.
So you were giving out, but you're also receiving some of those jokes or some of those pranks.
Well, if I could share one of the better ones.
Yeah.
There was about 8 or 10 of us in the shop, and we only had one latrine, and it only had one stall in it. You know, it had a door on it and all that.
Right.
And I had to use it pretty badly. And so I kept checking, but this one guy realized that I was checking, so he snuck in there and with a pair of boots out of his locker and put those in the stall. So every time I'd look, I thought it was somebody was using it. They thought that was funny. They really got it.
How did you figure out that no one was in there?
I don't remember how I figured it out, but I finally did. Maybe I went next door. You know, it was pretty drastic, but that's kind of things we do to one another.
Kind of ornery. Oh, that's funny. I think we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll follow up with some more conversation about your service. So we're going to hear Coffee Anderson, Mr. Red, White, and Blue. We'll be right back.
All right.
It's the guts and it's the glory. 100 stripes, 100 stories. It's the Pledge of Allegiance on the 4th of July. It's them handwritten letters from home. It's them sleepless nights alone. It's his newborn baby he left with his wife. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, here's a line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Hey. From the fields of Indiana to the swamps of Louisiana to the golden coast of California, Uncle Sam's the only family he's got. His purple heartbeat won't stop, and his 18th birthday was the day he was born. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, lay down, here's the line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, for these stars and stripes. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, stand on the front line. Mr. Red, White, and Blue, pay the ultimate price. Oh. flashing light. Hey. Hey.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
Welcome back to Tracer Rounds, and I have a special guest tonight. I have my uncle Larry Riepma, and he is an Air National Guard veteran and Air Force veteran as well, because he has active duty service as well. So I was going to ask you, what was your favorite plane to work on and why?
Well, probably the F4, because I did it the longest. I could still work on it today because I knew it so well.
Wow.
But yeah, it was, I would say, but the Warthog at the end of my end of my career, that probably would have been okay. I wasn't on it long enough to really master it and get to know everything about it.
So what would be the thing you'd have to fix the most on the F4? I mean, what was the thing you worked the most on when you worked on that aircraft?
Well, we'd have to tear them apart every so many hours, so many flying hours for an inspection. That was what we did the most of. I mean, once in a while we'd have a failure of something, but periodic inspections, that's mostly what we did.
Yeah. So you said after how many hours of flying they had to be totally torn apart?
Well, it changed, but it was 600 flying hours. And then they started doing it by sorties. That means how many times the plane went up before it landed. And the hours didn't matter. But in Iraq, they'd fly 8 hours at a time. So that was only one sortie. And they'd usually maybe get 600 sorties. So, some of them had a lot of hours on them. Yeah.
Wow. I wonder, I mean, I know people drive for 8 hours. Is it any different flying for 8 hours? Would you know? Like, I mean, I don't know if being in an aircraft seat up in the air, eight hours in the seat would be any different than 8 hours in the seat on the ground.
I don't know. The pilots didn't share that with me.
Yeah.
So they were the ones that were up there for 8 hours.
Because there you can't stop at Quick Trip and get a pop or something and then, hop back in and keep going.
They can't get much of anything.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know how I really don't know much about what it'd be like, but it's quite confining in there. There's not a lot of room to wiggle around and readjust yourself. So.
Right. Yeah, I can't imagine just being kind of stifled for 8 hours without any kind of real movement or whatever. That seems like a really long time to be in that space.
That's why they make the big bucks.
Right. Yes. Did you hear of any, when you were over there and they were flying, did you hear of any near misses or anything that was going on at the time?
No, but when I was in Thailand, they were shooting down 105s so fast we'd have airplanes scheduled to come in for inspection, and they'd get shot down. So we lost 5 in one day.
Oh wow, that's a lot. So what happens when you lose 5 aircraft in a day? You don't really have many replacements, do you?
They had more. They'd send a few more over there, but they were going to retire that plane, and the North Vietnamese pretty well retired them for us.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
Wow. did the pilots get out, or do you know about any of that?
One of them got held prisoner.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
There's a pretty good number of them over there.
Yeah. Wow. Were any of them from your unit, or were the other planes that were shot down?
No, they were from our unit. There's a lot of them went down.
Yeah.
That particular plane was pretty vulnerable for ground fire and MiG attacks. It didn't function well for those. They shot down a bunch of them.
What did they shoot them down with?
Oh, everything. SAM missiles, anti-aircraft fire, MiGs. They were them out however they could.
Yeah. Wow. That has to have been pretty scary to have witnessed and lived through all that. I can't imagine.
I was quite safe where I was. I mean, to be a pilot, they earn the money on those for sure.
Yeah. What year did you enlist? I don't know that I asked you that question.
1963.
63.
Yeah.
Okay.
Long time ago.
And what year did you retire?
The December 31st of 96.
96. And you said you don't miss it, but you miss the community and the jokes.
Oh yeah. Well, I still stay in touch with some of the guys from there.
Yeah. What unit were you in?
124th Fighter Wing.
124th Fighter Wing. Is that is that unit still in service, or did it decommission, or?
No, it's still there.
Yeah.
Still at Gowan Field.
Yeah. Do they have reunions or anything that you attend?
I went to a couple of things, yeah.
Yeah. Do you miss seeing the planes?
No.
No, you're like, I'm done. I know how to work on them, but I'm done.
Yeah.
I imagine it was hard work. I mean, I can't imagine that stripping a plane would be easy. Like, there would be a lot involved, and just dealing with the amount of tools and everything else that you have to lug around and carry. I imagine it was quite a chore to handle that.
Well, I worked primarily in the shop.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'd have to go out on the flight line and work, but that was fairly rare. But I did my work in the shop, and it wasn't physically demanding job.
It seems like it would be, because being a mechanic of any kind is really pretty laborsome. Like, it's very hands-on, very, you're manipulating things. And so it's a lot of wrench and a lot of arm strength, I would think.
No, it doesn't take much strength. It takes finesse. You have to get in some very, very difficult places, and we'd manufacture our own little special tools to get in places. But accessibility was probably the biggest thing.
Yeah. My uncle Larry, I talked to him. I mean, Lauren, my uncle Lauren, I talked to him, and he's Air Force veteran too, or Air Force Reserve is what he did. And he was also working on planes over at Gowan Field. So I find that really interesting that you both were over there. I don't know what unit he belonged to. I know you were in the National Guard, and I'm pretty sure he was Air Force Reserve. So obviously different divisions, departments, but he was working over there as well. So I thought that was pretty interesting that you're both working on planes. I think he said he missed it a little bit, but he was putting in communication devices, I think. I don't think he was actually working on them. He was actually installing communication equipment and things like that.
Yeah, they have They have lots of different job specialties. Yeah, everybody's got their own little areas that they specialize in,
Yeah.
and you don't know much about what anybody else does.
Right. You know what you do, and that's what you do best.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll take another quick break, and we're going to play Joe Muse' American Dream, and then we'll be right back.
Great.
We're living the American dream. I'm the American dream. Go to school, go to work, Sunday mornings choose a church, attend our games, our plays, PTAs. Drive our cars, flying planes, take the buses, take the trains, walk the beach, ski the slopes, living out our dreams and hopes. We're living, yes, we're living the American dream. We're the American dream. Thank you, soldier, sailor, Airman, Guardsman, and Marine. Thank you all for fighting for our freedom and our dreams, protecting our Constitution, guarding our homes and towns, defending our shores, seas, and skies, and putting boots on the ground. Some gave all for me and you. We served the red, white, and blue, protecting the American dream. Thanks to you, living the American dream. We're the American dream. The world's become a smaller place, many creeds and one big race, staking our claim to the Creator. We have to find a way for each to still be different but live in peace. Till then, we must protect ourselves, 'cause we're living, yes, we're living the American dream. I'm the American dream. We're the American dream.
And we're back on Tracer Rounds podcast with my special guest tonight, Larry Riepma, who is Air National Guard veteran or Air Force veteran. I don't know which to call it. I think it's both. I think it's all the same. I was going to ask you, what did you do after you retired from the Air Force?
Oh, I made a personal promise to myself I'd never hold another full-time job. So I did handyman things for people. I did that for a few years, and then my neighbor was a builder, and so I worked for him for several years, but never full-time. It was he had a window business. I ran his window business for him, and then I'd help him on houses occasionally, and give me something to do, and I learned a lot. And I enjoyed that. more than I did airplanes.
Really?
Yeah.
I think airplanes are so fascinating.
Well, everything that I ever did on an airplane looked the same when I was finished as when I started. But
Well, that's
when
true.
but when you build a house, you have nothing and you make
Right.
something. Even if it isn't yours, you can still enjoy it. You
That's
can
true.
drive by it and remember fond memories of what you were doing on it and feel a sense of accomplishment. And I don't think I really got that sense of accomplishment out of aircraft so much.
Yeah. Understood. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty awesome to, go by somewhere a house that you built or they had a hand in building and then see it over the years and all the different families and that take up residence in the home and enjoy it, so you're building something that's a legacy for someone to enjoy for years to come. And so, they don't necessarily get decommissioned like aircraft and, be out of service. So unless somebody doesn't take care of them. So you get to enjoy that for years, probably longer than an aircraft that you worked on.
Right.
So you said that you worked for him for several years. And then what did you do after that? Then did you just fully retire or what did you do after you stopped working for him? And did you build your house? Did he help you build your house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my wife and I were the primary builders.
Oh, wow.
I didn't do everything on the house by any means, but I was my own general contractor.
Yeah,
But
that's
if
nice.
I had a question, I could always ask my old boss. He'd give me the right answer. So, but yeah, it was an interesting experience.
I bet.
But well, we hit the about 07, 08 was when the building business kind of took a crap, and so he was the guy I worked for. He went broke. He got
Oh,
his home repossessed and everything, and
oh man.
so anyway, he was available to help me occasionally, but and I helped him. I didn't charge him. I helped him for free after that
Yeah.
because he needed it. But then since then he's a multi-gajillionaire now. He's been real busy and has made all kinds of money. But that's the way the construction is. It's chicken one day and feathers the next.
Yeah, you're right. The other uncle I was talking about, Lauren, he's a builder too. All the uncles were builders pretty much, or roofers. They started roofers and then they were builders. And he's, I think, seen the same thing that you're talking about. That's feast or famine. There's lots of work or there's no work. How long did it take you to build your house?
About 3 years
3
before we
years.
were
Wow.
really done. Maybe
Yeah.
a year and a half before we were able to live in it. But then we still had a lot of other things, painting and landscaping and sidewalks and outbuildings and lots of other stuff. But after about a year and a half, we were able to live in it.
Yeah. It's a labor of love, it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah. It didn't seem like we'd ever get done.
Yeah.
I convinced myself we wouldn't, but lo and behold, finally did.
Right. So what would you tell somebody joining the service today, joining the Air Force or Air National Guard? What piece of advice would you give them if they were trying to look for a career in the military or in the Air Force? What would you tell them today that's important to know?
Well, you certainly got job security, and you better be able to follow orders, which I never was that good at. And There's a lot worse ways to make a living, but you're not going to get rich.
True. But, truly, for most of us, I can't speak for everybody. For most of us, it's really not about the money we're going to make. It's about the experiences we're going to have and what we can do for the country, and then what we can do for our families in the meantime. I mean, I think we all serve for different reasons, maybe, but some similarities in why we serve. And one is to, make sure that freedom is maintained in this country, and that people are protected and our country's protected. And, it takes people to step up and say, I'll give the oath in order to keep our freedoms the way they are. Would you say that's pretty accurate?
Yeah, I'd say that's true. And I got to see a lot of things that there's no way I would have ever seen them without being in the military. I've seen a lot of other countries. I've been from Norway to Guam.
Yeah.
And about everything in between. So
Yeah.
it was an interesting experience.
Definitely. So would you say that we have it pretty good here, and people just don't really take the time to understand that? Because if you go to another country, you see all kinds of things that people take for granted here.
Well, some countries, that's true. A country like Norway, you never see a fat Norwegian. I didn't see a single one over there. And we went we were in some little town right on the Russian border, and we took a tour bus down to I'm trying to remember the name of the capital of Norway. And when we took a tour bus down there, and I didn't see a single piece of litter all the way there and all the way back. So I thought that quite interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's Oslo, isn't it? Isn't it Oslo, Norway?
Yeah, exactly. I'd have thought about it. Would have remembered it sometime tomorrow, but
that's what I do. I can't think of something right at the moment, and then like 2 a.m, I'm like, that's what it was. It bugged me all night till I remembered it. So if somebody is thinking about a service to join, which would you say which one would you recommend? Knowing what you know about the Air Force or the Air National Guard, what would you recommend?
Well, the Air Force is a lot plusher. You have the accommodations that the other services don't offer,
Right.
particularly the Army or the Marines. But rank is very slow. Where the Army, at least from what I've seen, you get promoted way quicker. And in the Air Force, it takes forever.
Yeah. I think it really depends on, if you're in the Army National Guard or the Army Reserve or the active duty Army. I think in the Guard side of the house, it takes a little longer, because I've seen career E4s. So like 20 years as an E4.
Wow.
And maybe that's what I said. And some of it may be just that was their choice to some degree. And then in other instances, I think there was some other influences that might have been at play in their instance. In the reserve side of the house, it was pretty much, you met your threshold of time in service, you did your schools, and then you went before the board. And if your packet looked good, then you got your promotion. But if you weren't willing to spend the time to put a packet together, then you might have not been picked up for that next rank. But it happened, pretty sequentially, as it should with time in service, I think.
Right. Yeah, that's more or less how we had it. You had different courses you had to take. If you wanted to be in management, you had to take management courses. But yeah, if you had it together, but it was still to make E7. Very few people ever made it under 20 years.
Really?
And, right.
Wow.
It was a slow process. And I talked to Army people, that made E5 in their first 4 years of active duty in the Air Force. That's very, very rare. I don't even know if it even happens, but E5 is usually 6-8 years before you're going to get that one. So
yeah, I'm going to pin that on. We'll take another quick break and we'll be back and we'll wrap up our conversation, but we're going to listen to Dustin Garner, Brothers in Arms, and we'll be right back.
On the front lines we stand side by side, with courage and strength that we won't let slide. Through the chaos, our hearts beat as one. Each brother's a soldier, into battle we run. When the shots ring out, we won't back down. In the silence of loss, we'll wear our crown. We are soldiers, brothers in arms. Through fire and fury, we weather the storms. In unity, forged through the blood that we've shed. Together we stand, living for the dead. Each step we take through the mud and the pain, memories linger like the echoes of rain. We fight for the fallen, our spirit won't break. In honor we carry their names in our wake. Though the cost is high, our bonds grow tight. In the darkest of hours we'll shine our light. We are soldiers, brothers in arms. Through fire and fury we weather the storms. In unity, forged through the blood that we've shed. Together we stand, living for the day. With every heartbeat we carry their name. In the brotherhood force we'll never be the same.
Military Broadcast Radio, the station that's giving veterans a voice.
Find us on the web at mbradio.us.
Opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent.
The interview of the week is brought to you by Jersey Mike's, a sub above.
Welcome back to Tracer Rounds, where we're giving veterans a voice. And tonight's veteran is Larry Riepma, and he's my uncle, and he's my dad's twin brother. And it's like seeing my dad on the screen beside me, and I think that's pretty darn cool.
all right.
So let me ask you this. What would you say your highlight of your service is? What would you say, like, if you could just put your hands on one thing, what would you say that one thing is? I mean, do you feel like it gave you opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise have in the industries that you did maybe afterward, or that just, a knowledge that you took away that you wouldn't otherwise had? What would you say your poignant moment or your pivotal moment in your service was?
That's difficult to say, but I learned a lot of things when I was younger, like responsibility and loyalty and being able to follow direction and those sort of things where had I not been in the military, I probably would have taken me a lot longer to learn those things than it did. Maybe I would have never. I don't know. Hard to say.
Yeah, I think the military teaches you what you can do when you didn't think you could do it. Like it pushes you past a boundary you thought existed, and then you realize it didn't because you just pushed past it. Because everything seems so hard, and then when you're forced to like go beyond what you think you can do, you find out you can do a whole lot more than what you ever envisioned. Is what I've learned in my military experiences. You know, I didn't think I could do some things, and then I found out I could go a whole lot harder and longer than I ever thought.
Would concur.
So is there anything that you'd like to say, just that we didn't talk about, or anything you'd like to follow up a question on while we have a few minutes left?
One thing I learned traveling to other countries is that I have no tolerance for humidity.
So you didn't like Texas, in other words.
No,
There's plenty of humidity here.
Not particularly, but Texas is dry compared to Thailand.
Really?
Oh my goodness, yes. Thailand is overwhelming. Your clothes would be wet in the locker before you ever got them on. And yeah, that was I couldn't handle that climate. Everybody would tell me that, oh, you'll get used to it. No, it didn't happen. So I enjoy the Idaho climate a lot more.
Tony is one of our hosts, and he says, welcome, Uncle Larry. And he's an Air Force veteran, and he's a host on Inside the Hoosier Mind, and he does a sports program. He's really good, by the way. But he doesn't like my Dolphins. Do you like the Dolphins?
I'm not much of a football fan, so I can't really give you an opinion.
Except for Boise State. Now tell me you support Boise State.
I have. I particularly when Kellen Moore was their quarterback. Yeah, I used to. I actually would listen or watch all his games. So, I was quite a fan of his, but not so much now. Yeah.
Well, he went to the Cowboys and then he got hurt, so then he became a coach.
Yeah, he's done quite well for himself.
Yeah, I think he parlayed his Boise State time into something bigger, and that's going to carry him through for a while, I think. So I think Boise State was a good stepping stone for him.
Absolutely, yeah. He was our fair-haired boy, and then he went to the Cowboys, and he was a third stringer,
Right.
I couldn't believe that. I thought he'd be their top guy, but no, it didn't happen. Where in Texas are you broadcasting from?
Dallas, Fort Worth.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So right in the home of the Cowboys.
You're not a Cowboy fan?
Well, I used to be, but I kind of transitioned to the Dolphins because my unit was in Miami. And so the Dolphins were, they're really good to military there. They were always inviting the military to games and things like that. And not that the Cowboys don't, they do. But I just became kind of a fan of the Dolphins. So, but Tony's telling me he doesn't hate the Dolphins. Only I just thought he did. Oh, so Jerry's asking, what did you like to do in Japan? What was your favorite thing to do in Japan?
Well, you could travel the whole country on a train, and if you never got off of it the whole time, they never charged you for it.
Oh, wow.
You got a ticket when you left the city you left from, and then when you got off the train, you turned your ticket in and then they'd charge you. Well, if you just stayed on the train, you could see everything, and it was all free.
Oh, wow.
And of course, the amount of money that I was earning a month then, everything needed to be free. That's the only way I could afford it.
Right.
But no, I enjoyed Japan. Was one of my favorite countries that I was in. Of course, I preferred the United States, but Japan was pretty good duty.
How long were you there?
About a year.
A year. And were you very long in Thailand?
Oh, yeah, maybe 8-10 months. Too long.
Too long.
I got to see Bob Hope, though.
Did you?
Yes.
So he was doing the. So was he with the USO then, or was he?
Yeah.
Was it a USO?
I think that was probably his last year he ever did it, and he did a Christmas show. It was like 120 degrees.
Oh wow. So Tony's saying my grandfather was actually part of the U.S. Air Force unit that was the ceremonial guard unit for the Japanese royal family when he was stationed there. Oh, that's pretty darn cool. Well, Tony, thank you for your grandfather's service. That's awesome. And Tony says, Terry was tired of getting her heart broken with the Cowboys losing in the playoffs. Yes, exactly that, Tony. You are so right. You hit it right on the head. That's it. Well, that's pretty neat. Well, I'm so excited that you came on the show tonight and that you talked to me because, like I said, we hadn't seen each other in quite a long time. And so I didn't really know much about your service, what you did or how long you were in or any of that. So it's really good to hear your side of your service and to really get to celebrate that service on this platform with you tonight.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. I appreciate that you had me on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, do you have any closing words before we close out?
No, I can't think of any.
No. Okay. Well, I want to thank all of our guests for joining us, the show hosts that were on, Tony and MJ, and then the family that was on, Robert and Jerry and Pam and my dad, Jerry. And I just thank you for being with us tonight. And I just want to celebrate your service and say thank you for your service. And next time I'm in town, I'm going to see you.
I hope so. We'll have lunch.
Sounds good to me. All right. Well, this is Teresa Round signing off, and thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
You're welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to Military Broadcast Radio. As we wrap up today's show, we want to remind you that the podcast of today's episode will be available right after we go off the air. So if you missed any part of the show, or want to listen again, be sure to check it out. And remember, we're here to support and honor our veterans. Your stories and experiences matter, and we are committed to giving you a platform to share them. That's right, we're here to give our veterans a voice. So don't forget to catch the podcast and stay connected with us. Giving our veterans a voice.